All right, we're live or soon to be live. I notice there's always like a small delay, but if the stream has caught up, I'm Dan, Full Value Dan. We're going to be looking at more projects from the suite Overflow. Joining me today is Augustin, Hoser Mage underscore on X. Be sure to give him a follow as he'll be sharing a lot of his insights for these projects. Augustin, how are you
Yeah.
doing?
Hoser Mage, Hoser Mage underscore, because
Yeah.
my college friend who I used to play Magic the Gathering with back in the a long time ago. Let's just not. I'll reveal my age later as an Easter egg anyway. He got Hoser Mage first, so now I'm Hoser Mage underscore. Yeah.
And you got to hold on to all the underscore socials because he's already he's parked on the non underscore version.
We do different things. Like he's more on the Insta, and I'm more on the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, so yeah, if you get a Hoser Mage, it doesn't look like me. He's my friend David. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So when we last chatted, we went over a lot of the tech in the suite overflow winners for the projects. We went over AI and cryptography. It does take a while to go through each of these projects. So there were eight. We went through Suithetic, Open Graph, RadenX, Hive, Zero Leaks, Shroud, Sui Sentinel, and Sui Shadow. Did you have any notable favorites from those?
Uh, I love it. You putting me on the spot here.
On the spot, it's like, yeah, what do you remember from
To
a
be
couple days
honest,
ago?
there's we it was sort of like a few. We went through a lot of different projects. I'm sure there was some favorites, but I can't remember them. But I did. I mean, I know the Sui Shadow was the NFT review one that we did a little bit of more investigation on just because
Yes.
we were technically curious. And I did try to. I mean, we are exploring making the NFT minting process more fun and exciting.
Yeah.
And so, in that sense, it is interesting to me just from that aspect because we're exploring that kind of angle. Yeah.
Right, right. And interesting enough, I went over some other crypto projects with Josh yesterday. There was another NFT project, which is kind of like it was called Exclusive, and from the video demo, it looks like you can, scroll through different elements of your NFT, make custom NFTs, kind of like a custom character in a video game, which we haven't seen yet, and it helps elevate the content and quality of projects on chain. So I'm hoping for their success as well as ours. So
Yeah. I think there is something there. Like maybe there's something there to just make the minting process as a core part of the entertainment and then sort of tie that into the Discord and the community somehow. Because we're always looking for more fun things to do. So
right
we need to explore that a little bit. Yeah.
now, we got a couple more. These are pretty technical ones, so it's great to have you on board so we can figure out like
Yeah.
what angle are they going for, the difficulty, and yeah, let's dive in. Exploration. So this is the explorations track. This track brought together experimental use cases and frontier ideas spanning robotics, prediction markets, digital agreements, and playful speculation. So the first project we got here is Sweetbotics. Sweetbotics explores physical machine-to-machine coordination using custom hardware, AI, and Sui smart contracts, bringing the future of autonomous robots closer to reality. So before we dive into that, what do we think that is? What do we expect to see when we click into that? Because that's pretty
uh,
broad. That's really broad.
word, I don't know, word salad, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's early in the morning, buddy. I didn't have
Mm.
I didn't have any coffee. Not that I'm not a coffee drinker. You turned me on to some wonderful coffee, though.
Yes.
The honey comida thing. I have not had any.
Yes.
Let me just drink some water. Hold on. I'm going to pour myself some
Okay.
water. Hold
He's
on.
buying time. He's buying
I'm buying
time.
time.
He's like, I gotta come up with something.
Let me collect my thoughts here. Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because you mentioned Sui Botica or Sui Botics. I type it in Google. It doesn't get me anywhere. So this is not on Google. Like I have to go to the site. I got to click around.
Yeah.
Physical. So
So
okay, this is what I think. First of all,
Mhm.
Well, I don't machine to machine coordination is that just wires? Is that just like wireless? Like, why do I
I think
need anything like from?
that's true. It says physical machine to machine coordination. So, um, yeah, you're physically linking machines together. That's what I would assume
That's just like a
when you have
wire,
that.
right? I don't need Sui
Right.
for that. I'm just like,
Right.
okay, isn't that a
Yeah.
walkie-talkie? I don't know. And then
More like a
AI.
telephone because you need to be wired, right?
Yeah. AI, Sui, smart, bringing the future of autonomous. So autonomous means like they can move on their own, and
Mhm,
so
mhm.
um, yeah. So I think there's a lot of these projects where they're trying to combine different technologies together. You could probably just get by with hardware and AI, and
Mhm,
so I'd
mhm.
be curious what the smart contracts are for.
Okay,
Um,
so let's take a look. So when we go into Sweetbotics, it brings us to their X page, home of Ply Pins. Raise your own personalized embodied AI companion by the Sweetbotics team. So it looks like a physical AI toy, kind of
so I
like a Tamagotchi, like a
like a
little digital
now
pet.
they could have just said Tamagotchi, and then I would have
That,
been like, I like this project.
but we're old. We know what Tamagotchi is. Like I'm sure like people haven't heard that word uh in the last two generations. I don't know how long,
Yeah,
but
it's sort of like Labubu, right? Like that's
mm,
just a Monchichi, an ugly one, but people
yeah.
call them Labubus now.
So we can still tell it's very early stage. If you look closely at the device, you can tell it's 3D printed by the texture on the side. So they are making this manually. They aren't like white labeling an existing product. So we know like this is a real product that they're developing themselves, and they're not just white labeling something and then relabeling it.
Yeah, no, I like these kinds of projects just because it's something physical. They do have some kind of hardware, and it looks like it's like an entertainment thing, but it could be education focused. So there's a lot of different ways to go. So yeah, I'm a
Yeah,
fan of hardware digital pets actually.
I
Let's
honestly
make
think
one.
this is yeah.
Let's make.
I think this is the start of embodied AI, where they're gonna maybe just use ChatGPT through here, where maybe they make ChatGPT their best friend. I saw a news article recently about this guy who fell in love with their ChatGPT because they gave it like a attractive voice. They had it be a little flirty. They designed it, and then when the memory ran out, it reset, and then he was devastated, and he had to go on the
Yeah,
news about it.
that's not good. So here's the way I think about these things. You know, because I have a daughter, right? Like I'm not really bullish on AI avatars and the ones that look like humans or that are trying to be photorealistic because I feel like it's a little bit well, it's inauthentic, you know, in that, and it can trick your brain. I think it's actually dangerous for you, just like for that guy.
Right.
So I actually like it when it's clear that it is a toy or that it's clearly not trying to be human, because it's sort of like it's safeguarding, it's shielding your brain. You can have a section of your brain that knows how to deal with this thing, and you're just dealing with it within its domain, either education or entertainment or something else. And I feel like even for digital companions, I do feel that it can be unhealthy if you sort of you lose sort of what's real and what's not.
Right. Right.
So I would prefer and so for me for example, let's go back to 8-bit Oracle again. Like if I do make it, I am looking into it making multimodal, and I explored avatars and things. I'm more of a fan of it being more graphic or sort of abstract. I
Right.
don't want it to be an exact carbon copy of me, for example. I wouldn't
Right.
do
Right.
that, but that wouldn't be an angle that I would entertain just because I want it to be more of a healthy experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to sum that up. We're saying that it's going to be unhealthy for people to rely on these tools and AI and thinking they're real people, because some people don't have that self control, that don't know how to distance themselves from that. And if we relate that to crypto, It's like crypto investing. It's like, you don't know when to stop. You get out of control, also similar to gambling. So it takes a while to generate that self-control. And if you find yourself on social media a lot and just on your phone too much and you're doing that, at least you're aware of it. But the newer generations that don't have that awareness are going to struggle with it.
Well, that's the advantage of being old men like us,
Yeah,
right? We grew up
through
without
that
these things.
transition.
So we see, oh, this is new shit. This might not be good for me. And I have my old ways of working that I remember.
Yes.
But new kids, they don't. They grew up with it. And I guess it's sort of an unknown, but I still veer I'm a bit conservative in that I want people to be able to make that distinction. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and that's why I like the Tamagotchis, right? Like they're
Yes.
simplistic. They're intentionally, well, maybe there's practical reasons too, but you're not talking to an actual person. You're talking to a toy, a cute toy,
Yeah.
and it might be AI driven, and maybe it has some really great personality in the back of it. But that by its form factor and everything, that it's not a real thing, or so yeah.
Right. Right. So this could be the start of something. They're still in their early stages. We'll see what happens. They don't have a website yet, but maybe something to follow. I think they're going to have a lot of trouble scaling the physical infrastructure side of things because, like, all right, you make these devices. How many do you make? How do you fund that? Do you borrow money? And where do you distribute it? Because, you don't want to go global. You have to have like a test country. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough journey. That's all
Hardware.
I think what it's going to be.
Yeah, and actually Hong Kong and Shenzhen are great places to try to start
That's true.
to create these things. I did explore this with my buddy into sort of toys, and there's a lot of different ways. We have a 3D printed shell, but
Hmm.
internally, the hardware could be programmable. So there is ways to sort of pick and choose what's truly fully custom and what's more common off the shelf and programmable. Yeah, there's a lot
That's
of it.
true. Yeah, there is so much manufacturing there that they could probably start something up with um, a company out there very quickly. So that is first place for the exploration section. Let's go on to second place, Skepsis. Skepsis is a decentralized prediction market that rewards accurate forecasting by letting users stake on probabilistic outcomes, transforming collective belief into a measurable insight. So I think just Polymarket.
That's just Polymarket.
Yeah, it's just Polymarket.
Polymarket word salad. Yeah.
Yeah. So they try to elevate it. That's fine. I don't think Sui has a big predictions market yet. I know of at least one other out there, but they're still struggling to get that liquidity, and as well as like all these other blockchains trying to have their own poly market. But people go to where there's going to be action. So let's take a look. Predict Continuous Outcomes, a decentralized prediction market platform that allows you to express nuanced beliefs about future events through continuous numerical outcomes. I hate that. I hate the way they worded that. Because you know who your audience is. They don't need all that. They just like, hey, bet on what you think's gonna happen. That's fine, and that'll hype you up even more than like the confusing wording. Whoa.
It's a little bit, yeah.
So you can explore the markets or provide
I guess they're
liquidity.
trying to make it this. There's a express your beliefs as a probability. It's like what they're using calculus. I don't know. It's like a spread bet. Um, it's a prediction market, so I don't think we need to talk too much about this. So all markets have the same challenges with network effects and bootstrapping, liquidity, and so on. So this
Right.
is not really, to me, this is not really about the tech. Again, it's more about distribution and marketing and their challenges. And of course, it's sort of a double-sided uh, challenge, just because you have an incumbent with Polymarket, and they're on Polygon, which is sort of in the background. Like when I think of
Yeah.
Polymarket, I actually don't think of Polygon anymore. I think in the
Yeah.
beginning, you just think of it's Polymarket. It just happens to have Poly in its name. right?
Yeah.
And so they've sort of crossed that threshold where they're actually already in the mainstream, and that's actually where you want to go with these consumer apps. You want to have, you actually want the crypto in the background because then you
Yeah.
sort of hit the broad audience, right? Uh, yeah,
But that is true. That I think people think of Polygon much less now, where a Poly market has become so big it kind of outshadows the technology that they're built on.
exactly. And as a founder, or if I was running a consumer app that happened to have crypto, that would be the ideal situation. You know,
Hmm.
you want to have your app, and there's these discussions around sort of verticalization and where apps actually control, controlling the user relationship, right? So like, because conceivably, if Poly Market wanted to, they could move chains
Hmm.
and their users would follow. There is
Yeah.
no stickiness to actually Polygon itself. It's just infrastructure. And so
Right.
Poly Market actually owns the user relationship there. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're getting even more competition. I use the Robinhood app, and they have a predictions market on there as well. So they're going to be actively growing and probably supporting more blockchains.
I see. Yeah, actually, that would make more sense. That would make a lot of sense for all of these prediction markets. And that's how I viewed my app. Going back to my app, like you don't
Hmm.
really want to tie yourself to a chain as a consumer app, right?
Yeah,
You just want
because
to focus on where the users are or what the users want to do, right?
yes. So just more on that. From a experience, you want users for your app to make it successful. If you take a chance on a smaller blockchain that doesn't have that audience, that doesn't have those users, and everyone is just there to farm rewards, that blockchain might not last very long. So you kind of want to look for where you can build long term and not have that extra struggle.
And that's always the challenge that we have with launching tokens and trying to build attention for apps, right? Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
are the users mercenary or are
Yes.
they true believers? Did you build something that users want to use? So that's
Yeah.
always that thing. Like, so crypto sort of confuses things because there's
Right.
that money making aspect that sort of gets in the way. It's a great bootstrapping mechanism for attention, but it's a double-edged sword. And we still haven't figured it out. I mean, you look at all the charts for most of the altcoins today.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's
This is not a
mercenary.
solved
It's mostly
problem.
mercenary right now.
Exactly. This is not a solved problem. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're still going through that.
So that is Skepsis predictions market. I think they're still in testnet. A lot of these seem like placeholders or sample ones. There's things that haven't been resolved and they were placed in June. So it looks like they're still getting started and maybe something to watch, especially if you want to be mercenary, get those rewards, and be early to platform. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Moving on to third place, Pact Da. PactDA or PactDA is a smart contract based agreement platform with ZK login onboarding, sweet escrow automation, and multi chain support, making digital deals simple, secure, and transparent, which is great because there isn't really any escrow platforms on on chain. For some reason, that's one of the easiest products, but there just isn't a lot of escrow platforms.
Yeah, it is. There's definitely utility. I tried going to the site. It doesn't look like it's up at the moment.
Yeah.
But definitely there's utility there. And I'm assuming, I guess it would be SUI assets. So if you have to escrow SUI assets, there's utility there. And yeah, I'm not sure on how technically difficult it is to build this. I guess the main issue would be the contract or some kind of thing has to hold
Hmm.
the asset. So you probably have to limit. You'd have to have different contracts for different assets, or you'd have to sort of structure in a way so that it's safe and so on, because it would be, yeah. So the contract would actually have to hold the asset, and then you might have some keepers or offline servers that sort of back the assets out if the agreement doesn't meet certain conditions.
Yeah.
So that's how these escrows work. Is they have to basically both sides have to follow certain bullet points, and then those bullet points have to be agreed upon, and then when there's mutual agreement on those, uh, and in the simplest case is, there's a price that's agreed upon in the asset,
Yeah.
so the money
I,
is held and so on. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, in a sense, predictions market like poly market does that, where you're kind of betting and it's holding that money. And I
Mhm.
think if we have more products that do something similar, that can help in so many words traveling through my head right now, but I'm saying like if this does grow to be a platform where it's easy to use, maybe we have like microservices on here, micro jobs. We're like, all right, make a video. If it hits 10,000 views, you get this reward. Maybe you make a bet with your friend and you want to say like, all right, we both put up $100. If my team wins in this sports game, I get it or you get it. Like you can start making more niche bets instead of just the blanket style betting.
Yeah, I mean, you can think of platforms like OpenSea and Prediction and Polymarket as sort of the marketplace is controlling the thing being escrowed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with more focused escrow platforms, it's actually more peer to peer. It's more like, hey, one party has a very specific thing and they've actually found a counterparty for it. And they're making their own very niche, um, you know, escrow or transference of value, both, in that specific case. So there's a lot of different ways. So I used to do real estate, and so there's typically for an escrow in real estate. Actually, the title company or the escrow company actually has to do a lot of due diligence, and they are actually in contact with providers like inspectors. So,
Mm-hmm.
so there's inspectors that are making sure that the house is in a certain shape and order, and you can sort of map that to oracles in the Web3 sense. So, like oracles are in charge of making sure of prices, but it could be anything in actuality, right? Um, and so there's a lot of like vertical depth to these kinds of platforms, I would say. But you can also start very simple. So from a technical perspective, like if I was to attack this market, it's actually quite an attractive market because you can slowly grow from a small use case and then expand it to have more complexity and depth, and then you can sort of have your users maybe inform you what they're looking for. So
Yeah. So speaking on that, like you kind of expect the inspectors to be honest as well as the nodes, but sometimes things happen. Recently, Polymarket and UMA Protocol, there was this disaster where they predicted the wrong outcome of the game, and that was based on the on UMA Protocol providing that data. So things can be manipulated. You can lose money. And yeah, I'll probably deep dive more into this. I haven't looked into it too much, so I can't speak on
I
how exactly it happened. Are you familiar with
I
what
know
happened?
a little. As I was waking up this morning, I did a little bit of looking into it. So UMA protocol. So it's basically governance driven oracles,
Mm-hmm. Which is
and
sounds terrible. Which sounds terrible.
exactly because you can game it, and that's
Yeah,
why there's always that tension in Web3 where we want decentralization, but until it breaks, then you want centralization again.
you want
But you
protection.
want
Yeah, you want that
you want
centralization.
but you want honest centralization because
Yes.
then you're back to, well, then how can I prove honesty, and then you get into game theory, and then you veer back to decentralization again. So it's a very challenging problem,
Mm-hmm.
and as highlighted by that tweet where I think they were trying to say who, what did Zelensky wear a suit, which is sort of
Yeah,
a
that's the
ridiculous
next one
thing.
right now. Yeah.
And so yeah.
So that's packed da escrow but they don't have their site up yet, so we'll have to wait and see what they build. So we are still too early. I could not find them on X, so there aren't any socials to follow. So moving on to fourth place, Predict Play. In Predict Play's gamified entertainment prediction market, similar to Skepsis, users speculate on trends in sports, fashion, and culture powered by AMM-based pricing and fast, low-cost on-chain settlement. So if we take a look,
Hey,
I actually like this a lot more. It just
yeah,
seems
live
more,
prediction streams.
yeah. So let's see. There's a gaming tournament. I don't know if this was a placeholder. Let me look at the video. This was 2 weeks ago, so not live, but looks like people were able to bet on survives. I'm going to assume that's just a big typo. And it's just a lot of test cases that they've been building out. So I actually like this a lot more. It's just because there's going to be more events happening in real time, and maybe you can make a lot of small bets. But again, generating that community and audience to start generating volume, it's always tough. It's always tough to get users.
Yeah, and so the lesson I've learned, Dan, is we needed to build a prediction market.
It's popular. It makes money. It wins. It wins hackathons. 2 out of 4 of the winners prediction markets.
Yeah, and and your site doesn't need to work all the time either. So good morning, Manuel. Yes, good morning, Manuel. So yes.
So all right, well, yeah, they kind of threw together their socials. So you're still really early. They have their ChatGPT image predicts P48917. Nothing against them. I'm hoping for their success because it would be fun to have live stream betting, and you just need to build that audience. So that is the toughest part about it. So we'll give you a follow just to see how your growth goes.
I do like the angle in that you're turning it into more live streamed entertainment, because people want to chat about their bets.
That's true.
They just want to chat. They want to rag on the other side, like how could you do that? You're so dumb. I'm gonna take your money. So you can have that whole banter thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of stuff on Polymarket, people lean towards politics and sports. So if you have your own specific niche where people know, like, oh, I go here specifically for that, you can get an audience.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way to sort of bootstrap a network. Is you pick a specific niche, shitcoins, for example.
Yeah, that's true. People love shitcoins and meme coins. They love the thrill of, will I be poor in 10 minutes or not? So you can find an audience with the right angle.
Shitcoin traders, maybe. When will he lose all of his money or something? I don't know.
That would be like a portfolio tracker tracking like the performance of people who performs best. That would be another fun one where it's a predictions market linked to a bunch of wallets, and then you have like a little trading competition on chain just to see who can actually perform.
Yeah, and you can actually bootstrap that network with agents. Right, so you can have agents, and then a prediction market on how agents perform, and then you can have like live streaming and see all of these ideas. Dan,
they're so good. Like I saw this other tweet earlier about this big VC firm selling. Let's see, here we go. Mike Dudas, the lead VC, has sold $242 million into this chart in a little over than 1 year since the token launch. Absolutely insane. And then it shows the chart for Celestia down only a month after launch. So I think it'd be great if we had agents just tracking these big portfolios to see who's selling, who's making these deals, so we have a better sense of like, is something really being built there, or should we short?
I have a nickname for Celestia that I've stolen from another streamer. You can also call him Molestia.
Oh damn, that's that's a great name. I don't know how far we can get away with that on social media, but hopefully it doesn't catch everything on the spell check. So that that does happen. We want to always consider that could happen when you're making an investment. So even if something seems legitimate and it has good technology, there's no guarantee it's going to go up. But we know that people that have a lot of money that are VCs that are investing, they're not in it to lose money, so they're eventually gonna recoup or take profits.
I if we want to go, I do have some technical knowledge on these data availability layers.
Right, right,
So I never actually when the DA layers first came on the market, I had no idea what the hell they were.
right.
And
Can,
I've ran nodes before. Okay, go ahead. Did you want to
Oh,
say
just
something?
real quick, for people that aren't familiar with data availability layers, that would be something like Eigenlayer or Celestia. Basically, it's like where are we proving on chain where this data happened and how reliable is that?
So, as you know, these layers just came on this most current cycle, but blockchains
Mm-hmm,
have been running for years. Okay.
mm-hmm,
And so, why is there all of a sudden a need for these DA layers? Well,
mm-hmm,
evidently from the
mm-hmm.
chart, maybe you don't need them. Uh,
Yeah.
but they came about because of layer twos
Mm-hmm,
primarily. So when layer twos came about, they needed a way to basically offload um, data and prove data that wasn't necessarily on chain, and they needed a way to sort of make it more efficient to store large volumes of data. And that's why they came about these other DA layers that try to improve the economics aspect of storing large volumes of data. For these sort of layer twos that didn't have all the economic strength that something like an Ethereum had. And
mm-hmm,
so that's why you have, and so that's sort of like DA layers in a nutshell. They're sort of a bit of a meme tied to the making the economics around these layer twos more viable, because these layer twos actually they don't um, their economics are much more inexpensive compared to Ethereum. So how did they make the economics work? They use these things like DA layers and yeah, so on, and they have ecosystems
yeah.
around DA layers and so on. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of a failing loop because even layer twos have become memes. I don't know if you saw the meme that was floating around earlier in the year or last year, where like, oh no, someone broke into my car and they left a new layer two blockchain. Yeah,
They didn't take anything. They left you something.
yeah,
A
yeah. It's
little
even
turd.
worse. Yeah,
A little beggar turd there. Oh yeah, that's
yeah. Nothing against it, but the reason why people launch it is because they want to own the ecosystem, they want to make money from it, and that's really hard to do. Where it's really hard to bring people on board because they don't know how long it's going to be there, and if they don't raise enough money and use that money to onboard people, it's not going to last.
yes. That's I think the only successful launch so that we've seen is Hyperliquid, and I think you've talked
Hmm.
about it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah, it's been solid. I'm actually working on another video on that. So if you're not subscribed, you should be, and you should also be liking this video, following Hoser Mage, as well as myself on socials. All right, well, moving on. Now we transition back into the video. That was the pitch, and we go into our next section. We finished off uh, robotics or explorations, and now we're
questions.
into infra and tooling,
Yes.
expanding the fundamentals. Projects in this track took on critical tools for builders, including database technologies and code auditing. In first place, we have SWI SQL, a library and toolset for working with decentralized SQL databases, bringing users everything they would expect from SQL, such as indexes, joins, and filters, to SWI and Walrus. What are your thoughts on this? Like I don't have a
Okay.
lot of thoughts on
I
this.
I went to the link, and it's just a Twitter, so I don't see a GitHub. So SQL is actually one of the foundational technologies in computing and in information technology. I used to work with
Mhm,
SQL a lot, so I'm very familiar with SQL. So it's a basically a way to query structured data in tables. It's called structured query language. And the way you deal with blockchains today is sort of very different from how you would deal with a normal database. So, and that's sort of why you have these things called indexers. So,
mhm.
indexers are sort of ways to surface SQL or some kind of structured language on top of data that's sitting in blockchains, right?
Right.
What an indexer
So
really is.
would
Yeah.
this be equivalent to like Dune?
So right. So how do you get the analytics to say, hey, give me all of the prices for this coin from this time period to this time period. You do a select against the historical data for that coin, and then it gives you back the data in a very structured format that you can do a graph with. So just imagine in Excel how you would do graphing in Excel. In Excel, it's expecting data in a specific format with columns and rows. But the data in blockchains is geared towards quick writing, and it's geared towards sort of easy consensus across multiple nodes. So if you think about how so the way the main data is just stored in blockchain is geared towards that purpose. It's not geared towards querying, which is what indexers do, and I guess which is what this project is about, which is surfacing some SQL layer on top of SUI. I don't see a GitHub. I only see a Twitter, but I imagine it would have to work the way an indexer works. So what an indexer is doing is it's actually reading data from blockchains, from a chain, and then persisting it in a SQL database. That's really what an indexer does.
Okay.
And once it's in the SQL database, then you can add indexes on top. And then once you have indexes on top, then queries against that those structured tables are very quick and efficient.
Okay. So for the less technical people, let me see if I can translate this right. So you're taking all that blockchain data, putting it in a place where they can search for it a lot easier.
Exactly. So imagine this. I have a contract for a coin sitting on chain, and it has all of the transactions for that coin on chain. But for me to figure out all of the transactions for a particular user for that coin, I have to go through all of the transactions on chain and then maybe find some transactions related to that user and exhaustively go through every block. Contrast this to if I have it indexed, then I can just query against for this coin, what were all the transactions from this user? Because I have an index on it. The index allows me to query things in that manner. Otherwise, I have to exhaustively go through every block for that contract and try to find transactions related to that user. That's really what an index and that's what SQL, structured language like SQL allow.
Yeah. Let me also give another real world example. Let's say you have a closet, you organize all your shirts, your pants, your underwear, your socks, whatever it may be. But let's say you have no closet. That's the blockchain right now. You got to dig through everything. You don't have any organization.
The blockchain is basically saying, "Oh, here's some transactions. Whoop! Let me just, they're organized in blocks in terms of time, in terms of that block number. That's how they're organized because it's geared towards quick writing.
Right.
You understand? Yeah.
So
and that's what this project is trying to solve. So it's a big problem, but it's been solved through indexers. So I can't see their GitHub, so I don't know what it's doing, but there is utility for developers for that for sure.
Yeah, so unfortunately we can't dig into it too much just because we don't have it up, and I did not save the video of where the Sui Overflow stream is, so we'll move on to second place. Sui Provenance Suite as a full stack toolkit for cryptographically verifiable code deployment. Sui Provenance Suite ensures that every component of a decentralized application on Sui can be transparently and securely traced back to its origin. Okay, I get that.
Yeah, I'm looking at their Twitter, and it looks like it's got some kind of no-code kind of graphing lineage thing. Let's build. Okay, crypto ecosystems XYZ. Let's just take a look. Loading taxonomy data. Okay, so you're looking at the video. ZKTX. Now we can trust in trustlessness. Okay. Every component of a decentralized app on Sui can be transparently traced back to its origin. Basically, back to me, when I see origin, it means to the deployer. So to the address that deployed it. Now the thing is, when I think of a DApp, I think of front end and back end.
Hmm.
And so to me, the back end components can be traced reliably to a deployer address, but the front end is a bit more tricky. The front end is typically, a lot of times it's deployed on Vercel or through some kind of CI/CD pipeline from GitHub. So CI/CD, all that means is you click a button and there's some code that gets compiled, and then it gets deployed on some server. And in many cases, that's going to be Vercel or some other service that can host sites for you or serve or code for you. Um, and so maybe that's what this is trying to prove, is trying to say,
Hmm.
hey, in addition to the smart contracts, I can somehow prove the provenance of the front end code as well, which is actually quite useful because, we've heard of hacks on the front end side where people sign things, maybe the website gets hacked or the URL is sort of pointing some kind of phishing site, and so on. So there is sort of utility in verifying that the front end is sort of pristine, or it's sort of intact, that its packaging has not been tampered with, and so
Hmm.
on. Yeah.
So that's provenance. Basically, you know where it came from, you can prove it, and that there wasn't any manipulation to it. So real world examples of that. I guess if you are opening Pokemon cards and you have that security seal on there, you can tell
Hologram.
it's if it's
Yes.
been opened or not.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I guess in the physical world, money, right? Like, so you
Hmm.
have
That's
ways
true.
to
The
make
watermark.
sure
Yeah.
the watermark, or there's some people put plastic in there, or there's some kind of, well, I'm going to red pill you guys because I do
Yeah.
read 4chan a little bit. Like every,
He's like, okay, I'm in it, but not too much.
exactly. So printers, for example, every
Mhm.
printer has some kind of invisible marking that gets made on the sheet of paper. So this is independent of the printer cartridge. So intelligence agencies can eventually track printed materials back to the actual printer that it came from. There is some
Mhm.
invisible marking there. So and that's provenance. Actually, it's a
Yeah.
concept that's also known in the art world, to know like sort of lineage of who owned this piece, because you want to make sure that that the piece is authentic. So if you can
Right.
trace the actual ownership of the piece through the ages, then you can prove its provenance, and there you can be sure that it's authentic, and so on.
Now, more on that, but not necessarily provenance. Uh, if you didn't know and you use Photoshop, you cannot put money in Photoshop. Like you can't take an image of like $100 bill and put it in there. It's not going to let you edit it.
That's why we need open source Photoshop. Yeah.
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 Yeah, because I was trying to make like a funny like $100 bill, like a fake one, and it's like it did not let me use that asset at all.
That's hilarious. That's
Mhm.
centralization for you. And maybe that's
That
good at the end
is,
of the day. I don't know. Like, there's
yeah, I
always
guess
that tension.
so.
There's
Yeah,
always that tension. Yeah. But well, maybe if they knew you, Dan. So if they knew you, and they would be like,
yeah.
okay, Dan is not a forger. We'll let him do it.
Yeah, I was just gonna use the frame as a joke and then edit like some funny stuff on top of it. Not possible. I had to use a fake one and then re-edit it, and that's yeah. There's a lot of like filters and safeties against that.
I wonder how far you get with GPT. Like
That's well with the
try.
DeepSeek probably pretty far, probably pretty far. I know DeepSeek and Quen are like your best friends if you wanna have a little more freedom with what you're doing with
That's right.
AI.
That's right. With 99% of topics, we'll say.
Mhm. All right. Third place. So we couldn't see much with Sweet Providence, but we kind of get what they're building. Real quick, how much demand do you think there is for this type of tool? Like, what would make them successful?
So it's a very niche tool. I would start with consumers and how much they would care. So I would say the large majority of consumers aren't knowledgeable enough to make that distinction, to say,
Hmm.
um, I would make it sort of like Better Business Bureau kind of branding. Like, it would give the consumer some level of comfort, but how much is there? It's sort of up to branding and marketing, in
Mm.
terms of brand awareness. And then as far as the technical stuff, I mean, this stuff is so, even as a dev, like, I don't have, as a dev, I might have the technical ability to do the research, but I wouldn't have the time or even the interest. So a lot of
Okay.
times I'm actually relying on third parties to be trustworthy.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so for this, it would depend on sort of their branding. Actually, maybe their tech is good,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, if you're not aware of their branding, that's sort of where the challenges in, and that's probably where the foundation would have to come in and help them, right?
Right.
But there's a
Because
utility in that. There's utility, but yeah, go ahead, Dan.
yeah, because people would be, if a project is using their service to say, hey, we know that everything where it originated from, we're using the sweet provenance suite. That would kind of be like, you're buying eggs at a market. It's like, are you going to buy the eggs, or are you going to buy the free range eggs? What kind of difference does it make to the consumer? Not too much, not too much. But if you are a builder and you want to have that reputation of like, we can prove everything, we have all these things being tracked. This is what is we can use. So
Yeah,
that's
and
what I think.
so selfishly speaking, right? Like, so let's say I wanted to get some kind of co-marketing for my app, a co-marketing boost. Then I would look at this tool, but it would depend on their reach, right? So
Mhm.
it would depend on sort of like how complex the integration would be and how much their reach would be. So it'd be sort of like, does the trade-off make sense for me from a marketing perspective to do that integration? Yep.
Right. So let's look at the next one. But first, let's
Yes.
take a break and answer a comment
Yeah,
that
let's
we
go. Yeah.
have here from Manu. When you guys have time, can you explain SWI in the simplest terms possible? Web3 noob here. So I'll give it a shot because I'm a pretty big SWI fan, as you can see here. Sui is a blockchain, and they use a little different tech. You can't use the same things you have on Ethereum, Base, Optimism, Arbitrum. Those are EVM based chains. Sui is a move based chain, so everything is object based. They were originally a spin-off from Diem, the blockchain project at Facebook. Diem split into Aptos and Sui. From what I hear, Aptos took kind of the marketing team, and Sui took more of the technical team because they have the Move developer himself. I forgot his name right now, but they have the developer of Move, this programming technology, on their side. Now, to the end user, you don't need to know all that. You just need to know the experience. Like, why would you use Sui over any other like EVM based chain that would do something similar? If you're using Sui, you have an object based blockchain and parallel transactions. That means objects are more solid. Like, you can move things as an object, like you have an NFT. That NFT, you hold it, it can receive airdrops. You don't need to necessarily have the address of the holder. You have the object address. You connect your wallet to a website. You won't get drained because you're not giving permissions to your wallet assets. Yeah, I'm kind of on the spot here, so I'm just kind of struggling and throwing things out there. But basically, you won't have wallet drainers that you see on EVM chains, so it does make it a little bit safer, as well as parallel transactions, meaning you can do a lot of things in one transaction instead of one thing at a time, which you have on EVM chains. So you kind of save a lot of time, and there's less friction there. So when I started using Sui, I thought it was a really good user experience. I heard some of the tech that they were building, and I saw that they tried to really make things user friendly, and that's not something I was really seeing on other blockchains. So that got me to invest my time in Sui, and it's worked out really well.
Yes, and I would say from a dev perspective, they use a different. It's right. So they use a different language, and that's what I sort of had to learn. I had to learn it for our project for NFT or .bid, and the way they deal with NFTs is more is from a technical perspective, it's more object oriented, you could say, if you're
Mhm.
technical. But I would say, yeah, I mean, from an end user perspective, it's faster, I would say. How would you compare? it to like Solana, or like I have some familiar with Phantom, which is very fast as well. How would you rate? How would
I'd
you
say
compare?
it's honestly, yeah, it's fast. It's very responsive. Transactions feel instant. Where if I use something else, I just it just hurts. It just hurts when you go
Yeah,
from fast to slow. Like
EVNs are
if you're
very
using,
slow.
yeah, because it's doing all these things one at a time, and it takes a while to finalize. So it is a really good user experience on that side of things. You know, you set up your wallet, you can use your Google account. They are innovating with like hardware and their gaming devices and more. So I see them continually building and innovating. So that's why you should be following something that continues to do that rather than the same thing.
And yes, and with relation to our project that used Walrus, so there's a lot of blockchains that do have some kind of integration with decentralized storage. So basically, all of these apps, they need some kind of way to store things usually.
Hmm.
And so from a DevX developer experience point of view, I thought that the integration was quite good. It was quite easy for me to sort of use Walrus, their development kit, to store the NFT image information. So their libraries seem quite decent from that perspective. It didn't seem like, hey, this was a bolt-on, completely separate project. It was
Hmm.
more in the documentation and things were more integrated in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very thoughtful. It's like they really want people to use it. They make it a better experience for developers and users.
Yes, and while we were talking about Sui, I did get their Sui Pulse actually has a GitHub, and
Okay.
I did get a technical summary of the project through. I had Cursor go through and
Oh,
sort of
perfect.
scan it.
Let's
Uh,
give the technical summary first. According to the Overflow site,
yes.
SuiPulse is a high-performance data streaming protocol built on Sui, delivering sub-second latency data streams with enterprise-grade security. So, what kind of data streaming do we need? Is this for like video stuff? What can we expect from SuiPulse here?
So it says it allows dApps to create and manage data streams with sub-second latency, similar to how messaging software, open source messaging software like Kafka works for Web 2. And so streaming to me, okay, everyone who uses Twitter has used streaming. You want to know how you use it?
Is this
When
like
you do,
streaming posts? Just
when you
streaming through like data
when,
being fed into your feed?
when you're doing the doom scroll. Okay,
Mm-hmm,
so when
mm-hmm.
you're doom scrolling, Twitter is this is actually quite a challenging problem, a technical problem with infinite scrolling, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
I have to make sure this user has not seen, well, maybe, and it's so hard. When you doom scroll enough, you do see things you've seen before. So it's actually quite a difficult. But that's what they're trying to solve is it's information you haven't seen before. The latency has to be very fast because if I'm scrolling and it suddenly stutters or stops, I might switch to something else.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's sort of the core technology behind data streaming in particular. So video streaming is a type of data streaming, which is for video, which we're all familiar with. But data streaming in this sense, from the Kafka perspective, or what these guys are trying to do, is specifically towards um, things like text or data feeds, prices. And you can understand why price data feeds are so important in terms of latency, because, that's what people are trading on. And if one platform's data feed is slower than the other, then you can get arbitraged and so on. And so that's why low latency is a very important factor in these kinds of um, technologies. And so to me, it's a library. It's not for end users. It's for developers to add streaming capability to their dApp, their decentralized app, if they were needing to stream data from the Sui blockchain. That's sort of my sort of high level view on it. So it would be the most apparent usage would be like a decentralized
Twitter.
marketplace, a DEX, or well, if you were to, if there was a decentralized Twitter on Sui that was using the Sui chain for persistence, then yes,
Hmm.
then it would be a decentral. But I would say for the most native reason would be if you were to stream prices from the blockchain itself. I think instead of using an index. So you understand why these marketplaces, like even NFT platforms and dexes, there are actually a lot of moving pieces behind
Hmm.
the marketplaces on top of just what's on chain, because they need to make sure that the data that the user sees is up to date. And when the user switches from page to page or coin to coin or from one time period to the other, the screen gets updated very quick, right? And so
Hmm.
that's why streaming information, streaming and indexers are so important. That's sort of the low level. This is a low level SDK for developers. It's not for end users. Yeah.
I see. So that seems pretty useful. Yeah, it seems like it's very well thought out, very detailed. It has all these different packages for whatever you want to build. Um, and it seems even I can understand how to get started based on like what they provided. So I like how they were very detailed with the documentation and getting
Yes. So
started.
their GitHub is, it seems quite now I didn't look at the code, I just had the cursor agent look through it.
Hmm.
But it seems like you can do an npm install. So they had to
Hmm.
deploy their library on npm.js. So they've done the guy who wrote it has there's a developer sense to the structure of this package and so on. Yeah.
All right, so now let's get to our last one, Noodles 5. The Noodles 5 platform combines deep analytics with single click strategies, letting users discover and act on the best opportunities in Sui. So it sounds like when you say single click strategies, it is a trading platform. Maybe it's like a deck screener. Let's take a look. And yeah, it looks like it has a lot of different price feeds here. Let me zoom out a little to see if it gives us a different outlook. Oh, it also has a community feed of different tweets happening in the Sui space. So I guess this is more like Sui sentiment tracking, or not just price tracking and trading.
Yeah.
You can connect your wallet. This doesn't seem like a one or two person team. This seems
No.
pretty developed.
This does not seem like a fourth place entry to me. This seems like
Yeah, like they've been established.
right, because like as I explained before, if you see an interface like this,
Yeah.
there's actually a lot going on to get you all these prices.
Hmm.
Um, there's either they have their own oracles or they are integrating to other oracles, and then there's integrations to charting if they have charts and so on. And so, are they doing trading, or is it just a read only? They're doing so. They have swapping.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have swapping, so they've got integrations to the contracts and so on. And, you know, uh, yeah, this looks like a real thing. Now, I will say this though, um, when I see something like this, I also have in the back of my mind that this is an existing team that is
Hmm.
redeploying their technology, right? Like
Okay.
I wouldn't if they got fourth place, um, and they apply to this hackathon, my first instinct is this might be an existing project that they've repurposed, and it might have been deployed on multiple chains and so on, right? Um,
Hmm.
and so that would be another thing that I would have in the back of my mind, unless they got. And the reason why I say things like that is it's not. This is a lot of effort to build
Yeah.
something like this. And so, unless they got a grant from SUI specifically to build on SUI, my first instinct is they built on another chain and they repurposed this just to try
That
to
makes
get
sense.
some additional money from this hackathon and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they in this pin post from March 26th, it looks like they have an established product since then.
Yeah. So,
So I was like,
maybe it was an earlier grant or something
mhm.
from SUI, I don't know. Like there is history behind this project and team
Mhm.
for sure. Yeah.
So that kind of covers that. Just another tool. I don't know if they're gonna have any airdrops or incentives. It doesn't look like there was a points campaign, so there could be. We never know. We never know what they might do for the community, because if you are providing swaps, you are probably taking a cut of the swaps, so you are generating revenue. There is a leaderboard, so could be some potential there. Might look into in another video in case Noodlefi provide something to their community and early users. And everyone loves airdrops, so that's a good reason to be involved.
Yeah.
So we
Um,
so we
professional
just went
looking
over.
project. Looking
Yeah, it's
professional.
very professional, very detailed. This was not like a two-man team and a couple weeks. So we looked through explorations and infra and tooling. I think what would be your favorite from exploration? So we had Sweetbotics, the Tamagotchi style device, Skepsis, a predictions market, third place Pack DA for escrow services, and Predict Play, a gaming
I'm a
predictions market.
I'm a sucker for Tamagotchis. So just because I feel like there's a good product market fit has been established,
Hmm.
and I still feel like, and I'll tell you, this is a personal story because I went to Japan, Fukuoka, looking for Tamagotchis. They were all sold like a couple months ago, or
Hmm.
maybe late last year. They're all sold out. And I was just like, what's going on here? I didn't realize that people liked these digital pets so much, or kids like them. And if you can make a good one, there's good product market fit there. Now, good to me means like
Oh
it's
my God.
entertaining and educational, and well, there's a collector's aspect to these
Oh,
things.
okay. Yeah. These are expensive. These are crazy expensive.
There's some, really old ones, and it ties into nostalgia and so on.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's sort of an maybe it's been explored, but space. But to me, I think there's a lot of space to explore and make things, improve things, especially with AI and so on.
Yeah.
So
Okay. That
that's
is
my
a great
pick.
pick. You kind of you turned me. Yeah. I was gonna say predict play, but I'll go with my first one. But you did turn my opinion on Sweetbotics. But
Oh,
I would have picked predict play, because if we have
oh,
a
streaming,
gaming, yeah,
this live streams.
live stream betting, because I think gaming is pretty big, a lot of streaming too, so if you can add that layer of prediction on it, where maybe people are betting on the outcomes, it would make it engaging. And if we look at the gamer audience, they are more technical, they're more willing to try things, and if they market specifically towards them, I think they have a really good chance.
There's a lot of ways you can go. So you can actually bootstrap individual streams with avatars or agents
Hmm.
or even Notebook LM. Like you can have these things that are constantly going just to kick off the conversation and attract people who actually have bets. So I feel like I do like the entertainment aspect of this. This is
Hmm.
yeah. So now what's interesting is the most interesting aspects are not Web3 aspects, right? Like for both of these projects, it's actually just streaming, which is not really
Yeah.
a Web3 thing, and then the
Hmm.
Tamagotchi thing, which is not a Web3 thing either. So
More
like
physical, yeah.
those are the most interesting things that we've seen. Yeah,
And that is a good way to bridge in those Web 2 users with something familiar, with something they
exactly.
want to use,
Yeah.
rather than forcing data availability down their throat. Yeah, you get this. It has data availability. You're going to love it. Yeah.
Exactly. This is why, and as a technical person, that's why I was so confused. I was like, wait, data availability. I ran Ethereum nodes. Like I know you need to persist things already. So why is it become a meme? And so
Mhm.
now it's like, oh, it's because of the way L2s work and how they actually don't want to persist everything. They want to persist things on other platforms to make their tokenomics work. So it's actually sort of like
Yeah.
a financial, it's like a meme born from some kind of economic reasons why
Mhm.
there's a data. It's not so. It's a DA is a very technical term, but the reason for its existence is an economic one. So that
Right.
it's just why it's very confusing to me. I was like, what the hell is going on? What is this DA thing? Yeah. Anyway,
So let's try a real world example for that, just because I like translating things.
yeah,
So let's say it's you're at home, your house is messy. It's an opportunity cost for you to clean that up, but if you outsource that to a cleaner, that makes it
yeah,
easier. So I think that's what these L2 blockchains are doing. It's more cost effective to have a data availability service rather than them running it themselves.
exactly. So it's expensive for them to or inefficient for them to sort of query the main blockchain in many cases. So they want to have DA layers and to persist into the main chain. So they want to have DA layers that are more inexpensive for them to work with. Yeah, that's basically the idea.
Okay, so we got our picks there. We got Predict Play and Sweetbotic. So for infra and tooling, we have Sweet SQL, SQL database on chain, Sweet Provenance Suite, proving where you got your data, Sweet Pulse, data streaming, Noodlespy, an existing uh, analytics platform.
Yeah,
What would be your favorite one here?
Sui Pulse, baby.
Sweet
Sui
Pulse
Pulse.
did look good. I was actually pretty excited when I was like, "Oh, I understand this."
Yeah, because I just like from a now this is a tooling and I'm looking at it from a dev perspective. Like Sui Pulse is the most uh, usable of those projects for me. Like I would say, oh, okay, it's an npm package. I can go through the code. I can go through their docs. That's sort of my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, for the dev pick, I would go with Sweet Pulse. For the user side of things, you guys can't use any of these except for Noodlespy. So if you are a crypto user and just want to try one of these, it would be the Noodlespy platform. They have a leaderboard, a potential airdrop. So that would be the opportunity there for this section.
Yep.
All right, we are just over an hour. I think that
Yes.
should wrap things up because it takes a while to jump through all of these, and you provided a lot of valuable insights from the dev side because on the retail side, I had nothing for Sui SQL
Yeah.
and Provenance and
Yeah. Those are libraries. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. But you provided a lot of valuable context for the viewers, so everyone be sure to follow HoserMage_ on socials,
Yeah.
and feel free to engage with this video as well. Any last thoughts?
No, I mean, just thanks for the opportunity and shilling my app, 8-bit
Yeah.
Oracle. If you have curiosity about the e-chain or more ancient divination systems, please go to my Twitter. There's a link to 8-bit Oracle there. It's open beta, and that's about it. I look forward to the next opportunity and chance to hang
Yes.
out with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, maybe even more. We are like 70% through this list. There is a lot of stuff here.
There's a
Well, actually,
lot
not
of
that much. Two more sections and
okay.
university award winners.
Yeah.
But that's for another time.
Yeah, and Dan and I we are periodically cooking things up together. At nftier.bid, check it out. Don't slam
Still
it
in the
too
works.
much.
Don't use it though. You can look at it. Don't use it.
Check it out. I think it's a great. Honestly speaking, I think it's entertaining. So check it out and see. Tell us what you think. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, it's just the end. It's just the after Marvel movie moment. As I'm waiting to hit end stream. We got to give it a second. Other than that, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you in the next one, and I'm gonna hit end stream